Hello viewer, welcome to Worldview, coming to you live from Uyoon Spectrum TV. I am Emedion James. Today we begin in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kiev is working closely with the United States and other international partners on new peace proposals, a fresh attempt to chart the path out of a war that has defined global security for nearly 3 years. We then move now to Beirut, where tensions in the Middle East have sharpened once again. Israel has carried out a strike that killed a senior Hezbollah military figure, a move already stirring diplomatic and security concerns across the region. And finally, we move now to the global stage in South Africa, where Georgians and diplomats are calling the recent G20 summit a victory for multilateralism, despite the absence of the United States. All of that and more on today's edition of Worldview Today, where we connect the headlines to the human stories behind them. Please stay tuned. Many thanks for staying tuned. Let's begin from the Ukraine and Russia war scene, where President Volodymyr Zelensky said today that Ukraine will continue to work with partners, including the US, on peace proposals. Now, this is the second day of talks in Switzerland after Washington proposed a plan calling for concession from Kiev. On Sunday, Ukraine and the United States said in a joint statement that they had drafted a refined peace framework after talks in Geneva, although they did not provide specifics. Meanwhile, Zelensky said Russia must pay for the war in Ukraine and that a decision on using frozen Russian assets was crucial. In the meantime, US President Donald Trump on Sunday accused Ukraine again of lacking gratitude for Washington's support against Russia's invasion, as top US and Ukraine representatives meet in Geneva for talks and proposal to halt the war. Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform that Ukraine leadership has expressed zero gratitude for their effort, while also re-airing frustration at the war's human catastrophe and attacking his predecessor Joe Biden, but offering no direct condemnation of Moscow. Still in Ukraine, Ukrainian authorities have said that 34 people were killed in last week's Russian attack on the western city of Ternopil, the deadliest Russian missile strike on civilians in 2025. A Russian missile hit an apartment building on Ternopil on Tuesday, on the eve of the emergence of the U.S. peace plan to end the Ukraine war. European, Ukraine and U.S. officials gathered in Geneva on Sunday to discuss a draft plan to end the war. The Ukrainian military previously stated that the residential building was hit by a Russian missile launched from a strategic bomber. In a related development, according to report, Europeans have submitted a modified version of the United States peace plan for Ukraine that pushes back on proposed limit to Kiev's armed forces and territorial concessions. The document, prepared for talks on the plan in Geneva, proposes that Ukraine's military be capped at 800,000 in peacetime rather than a blanket cap of 600,000 proposed by the U.S. plan. It also says negotiations on territorial swap will start from the line of contact rather than predetermining that certain areas should be recognized as de facto Russia, as the U.S. plan suggests. Reports say that the counter-proposal was drafted by the European E3 powers, Britain, France and Germany. The document takes the U.S. proposal as its basis, but goes through point by point with suggested delegations or changes. In the Middle East region, Israel killed militant group Hezbollah's top military official in an airstrike on a southern suburb of Beirut, the Israeli military said, despite a U.S. brokered truce a year ago. The military said in a statement that the strike, the first on the outskirts of the Lebanese capital in a month, targeted Iran-backed Hezbollah's acting chief of staff, Ali Tabtabei. Meanwhile, Hezbollah confirmed the death of Tabtabei in a statement, mourning him as a great jihadist commander who had worked to confront Israeli enemy until the last moment of his blessed life. He further showed his seniority, but they did not give further details about his exact role. In the meantime, local health authorities have confirmed that Israeli airstrikes in Gaza killed at least 20 people and wounded more than 80 in a further test of a fragile ceasefire between the Palestinian militant group Hamas and Israel. Witnesses and medics said the first attack hit a car in a densely populated Ramal neighborhood, setting it ablaze and also injuring few. It was not immediately clear whether the 5 dead were passengers of the car or included passerbys. However, dozens of people rushed to extinguish the fire and rescue the victims. Shortly after the attack on the car, medics said that the Israeli Air Force carried out 2 separate airstrikes on 2 houses in Dar el Balam city and Nuseirat camp in central Gaza Strip, killing at least 10 people and wounding several others. Later, a new Israeli airstrike on a house in western Gaza City killed at least 5 Palestinians and wounded others, medics said, taking Saturday's death toll to at least 20. Still in the Middle East, a senior Hamas delegation met Egypt's intelligence chief in Cairo on Sunday to discuss a ceasefire agreement and the situation in Gaza. The group said as both Israel and the Palestinian militant group continue to trade accusations of truce violations. Egypt, Qatar and the U.S. have been mediating between Hamas and Israel, securing the ceasefire that came into effect last month. In a statement, the group said it reaffirmed its commitment to implementing the first phase of the ceasefire agreement in its meetings with Egypt's intelligence chief, but accused Israel of continued violations that it said threatened to undermine the deal. In a related development, Israel's military chief has dismissed several senior military personnel and reprimanded others over their roles in the failures on October 7, 2023, which Hamas launched a surprise attack on the southern Israel from Gaza. The military said in a statement that a number of officers were told they will be released from reserve duties and would no longer serve in the military. Others were issued formal reprimands, while one was informed that their service would be ended. Another also tendered his resignation. Those informed that they will be released from reserve duties included the former heads of Intelligence Directorate, Operations Directorate on Southern Command, which is responsible for Gaza. The generals had previously resigned from active service but remained on reserve duty. In Pakistan, authorities said that 3 suicide bombers targeted the headquarters of the Pakistani paramilitary force today, killing 3 personnel and wounding at least 5. Police has said that the attackers opened fire as they forced themselves into the headquarters of the Frontier Constabulary in Peshawar city before blowing themselves up inside the complex. The deputy commandant of the force, Jaf Iqbal, said that 3 paramilitary personnel were killed. The first suicide bomber carried out an attack on the main entrance of the constabulary, and the others entered the compound. Meanwhile, law enforcement personnel, including the army and police, have condoned of the area and are carefully handling the situation, as they suspect there were some tourists inside the headquarters. Let's move now to the Asian Pacific region, where China called Japan's plan to deploy missiles on an island near Taiwan a deliberate attempt to create regional tension and provoke military confrontation today, as a diplomatic dispute simmers between the two nations. The remark comes amid their worst diplomatic crisis in years, after Japanese Prime Minister Sena Takahashi said this month a hypothetical Chinese attack on democratically governed Taiwan would trigger a military response from Tokyo. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ma Yunning told a regular press briefing that right-wing forces in Japan are leading Japan and the region towards disaster, also confirming that Beijing is determined and capable of safeguarding its national territorial sovereignty. The comment followed Sunday's remarks by Japan's Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi. The plans were steadily moving forward to deploy a medium-range surface-to-air missile unit at a military base on Yonaguni, an island about 110 kilometers off Taiwan east coast. In the meantime, reports say that China will launch the Changzhou 22 space aircraft tomorrow, a move that will help return the country's space station and main flight program to normality after a vessel was damaged in early November. The Changzhou 22 spacecraft is being sent to China's space station Tiangong to replace the Changzhou 21, which was forced to return to Earth 6 months before schedule after another vessel docked at the station was damaged. We'll take a quick breather right now. When we return, Worldview continues. Tune. This is Worldview on Spectrum TV. We turn the spotlight to Africa now, where South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has said that the declaration from this weekend's Group of 20 summit reflected a renewed commitment to multilateralism cooperation, concluding a meeting that pitted him against his U.S. counterpart. Ramaphosa, host of the Johannesburg summit, pushed through the declaration addressing challenges like the climate crisis, despite objections from the United States, which boycotted their event. Addressing the closing ceremony, Ramaphosa said the declaration showed world leaders' shared goals, outweighed their differences. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump boycotted the November 22 to 23 summit on the grounds of allegations which have been comprehensively falsified that the host country black majority government persecutes its white minority. In the meantime, South African police said on Sunday that they will investigate Duduzile Zuma Zambula, a daughter of former South African President Jacob Zuma, and two others for their alleged role in luring 17 men to fight for Russia in Ukraine. The probe follows a formal request from Zuma's Sambulat half-sister Nkosazana Bonganini for authorities to look into the matter. The South African presidency said earlier this month that it would investigate how the men between the ages of 20 and 39 years wound up joining mercenary forces after they sent distress calls for help to return home. Still in Africa, COP Guinea-Bissau voted on Sunday in presidential and legislative elections, with President Umaru Sissoco Embalo in a tight contest to become the first leader in 3 decades to win a second consecutive term in the West African nation. He is up against 11 other candidates, the strongest of them relative political newcomers Fernando Diaz, who has the backing of the party that led the fight for independence from Portugal in the 1960s and 1970s. Reports are predicting a close race between Embalo and Diaz, and a runoff will be held if no candidate gets more than 50% of the vote. Wearing his customary red kafiyeh, Embalo voted on Sunday in the eastern city of Gabo, expressing confidence he would win. Away from that, a company spokesperson has said today that Snapchat has begun asking teenage Australians to verify their ages just weeks before Canberra enforces sweeping laws banning under-16s from social media. From December 10, Australia will force social media platforms including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok to remove users under the age of 16 or face hefty fines. The company also added that starting this week, many users will be asked to verify their age to continue accessing Snapchat. Further stressing on the matter, he added that users will be able to do so using an Australian bank account, government-issued identification, or by taking a photo of their face, which a third party would then use to provide an estimated age range. Meanwhile, from December 10, users under 16 will have their accounts locked. On entertainment scene, India's hugely popular Bollywood star Dharmendra, who was equally at ease in romantic comedies and high-octave action blockbuster movies, has died at the age of 89. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in a statement on social media that the passing of Dharmendra Ji marks the end of an era in Indian cinema. He also added that he was an iconic film personality, a phenomenal actor who brought charm and depth to every role he played. The actor had not been well recently and was admitted to a hospital in Mumbai. Over a remarkable six-decade career, Dharmendra appeared in more than 250 films, served as a Member of Parliament, and was honored with one of India's highest civilian awards. Last on World View today, Spain's chief prosecutor said today he was resigning after the Supreme Court last week found him guilty of leaking confidential information in a case involving a leading opposition figure partner. The unprecedented case is a blow to the leftist coalition government of Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who appointed Alvaro Garcia in 2022 and has repeatedly defended his innocency. According to report, Gracias Ortiz said his decision to step down before the sentence banning him from his post for 2 years came from profound respect for judicial rulings. In a world shaped by conflict, diplomacy, and shifting power, the stories continue to unfold quietly in negotiations rooms, loudly on front lines, and boldly on the global stage. You've been watching Worldview today on Spectrum TV. I am Emedion James. Stay informed, stay curious, and join us next time as we follow the event shaping our world.